What's the main thing you've learnt about the automotive industry? If you could pick one element.
I think it's that the customer is now the king.
Yep.
He wasn't always the king. It was the customer, when buying a used car particularly, it was almost customer beware.
Yep.
You know, whatever the problem is, it's your fault. You bought the thing, it's your
It's all
fault.
your fault.
Yeah. Now it's all about what happens afterwards.
Hi, Malcolm.
Yeah, hi.
Thanks for joining us in the Armchair studio.
Yeah, thanks, Mark.
For the benefit of the audience, can you tell me a bit about where you hail from? So where have you travelled from today?
Yeah, I live in Hinckley. It was at one time the centre of the hosiery of the sock industry
Wow.
in the Midlands. But it's a great location.
Well, we're not far from each other. I live in Leamington, so
Okay.
very
Yeah,
close actually.
yeah,
Yeah.
fine.
But yeah, nice part of the world.
So from a job in sales,
Yep.
all parts of the UK are accessible,
Yeah.
and it's a great central location.
Fantastic. You work for WMS.
I do.
Can you tell us a little bit about what they do?
Yeah, they're a warranty administrator. I have the good fortune to work for them as the national sales manager. And so my job is very much on the road, aiding and supporting the guys and girls.
We've had a lot of people on this show who haven't taken use air quotes, the normal or kind of perceived route into the industry, which I think is interesting, really, isn't it? Because I think it kind of paints a different picture of the opportunities that are available in automotive.
Yeah.
What would you say to people who are looking to get into the industry but are perhaps a little bit unsure if it's right for them? If for example, they don't really have a huge interest in cars, but they have a feeling they could add something to the industry, what would you say to someone like that?
It's an interesting question. If we look at other industries, they have internships,
Yep.
which means that out of university or your higher place of education, you would look at an industry and say, I'd love to get into that. I'd love to be a solicitor. I'd love to be a barrister. I'd love to be a doctor. But I'm not sure. You take an internship where you probably would be paid little or nothing,
Yep.
maybe your expenses, but within 6 to 12 months, particularly if you're still at home, you would know whether that was the industry you wanted. Plus, the people that you'd been associated or working with would say, hey, here's a good guy or here's a good girl. Let's offer them training.
Yep.
Let's offer them a future career. And I think that would encourage long-term relationships. And I think within the motor industry, we're missing a trick.
Okay.
You know, we've spoken before, Mark, with regard to growing our own. And I think it's only a large company can afford to do that. But medium-sized companies now ought to look at the benefits of growing your own, promoting from within, and showing a clear, concise, logical career path.
Is there a reason these businesses aren't growing from within and investing in their own teams, do you think?
It's probably financial.
Okay.
You know, it's cost. At each stage, even our own industry, we look at an individual and what's the return on investment? Because it's a huge investment now. It's not only the cost of the salary, it's the cost, the national insurance.
Yep.
You're contributing towards pension. Most people want a sick benefit. And you're paying holidays, then there's the cars, then there's laptops, and it goes on. It's a huge investment, each individual. And I think most of our businesses can't afford at this juncture to be investing in somebody that won't be productive pretty soon, pretty quickly.
Yeah, you couldn't put it better, really.
Yeah.
Does your path into the industry kind of reflect that? I mean, did you always want to get into this industry, or was it something? Have you come a slightly different route?
Well, I suppose as a child that was being brought up in the 60s, motor cars was very much, not every parent had a motor car.
No.
So when your dad actually brought home something, whether it was a Mark 1 Cortina, now I'm aging myself, or an Anglia 105E. Yeah,
we've got loads of them on here, aren't we?
Yeah. I know. So that's what's reminding me. Actually, that's what's reminding me of them. What was that was part of our generation. I mean, I was born in 1952.
Yep.
So it's only been 8 years since food rationing. The Second World War ended.
Yep.
So there was a lot of austerity. And I think probably being educated during the 60s reflected reflected on that.
Yeah.
So to be part of motor car ownership, or your parents anyway, was an introduction. And I always used to pride myself that when I sat in the back of Dad's car, looking out the back window, particularly when it was dark, I could identify those motor cars that were coming up behind by where the headlights were.
That's
I say that, but it wasn't a burning ambition to get into the motor trade. But I was fortunate enough, joined Robbins and Day.
Yep.
They had a management trainee scheme, which meant I was able to work through service department, was able to work through parts department, able to work through sales department. And that was a great grounding. And that was my introduction to the motor industry.
Do you think education plays a big part in this? Thinking about your own journey and the role that your education has played in your career, how important is education in this industry?
Well, for me, I think it was actually worthless. No, seriously, because it's all about character.
Yeah.
I think sales I've always referred to as being a participant in a play.
Yeah.
You act. So you get in front of the client, the prospect, whether it be for double glazing, be it for a motor car, or be it for a warranty company, you're going to perform. Immediately you knock on the door and you walk in.
It is a performance.
And it's part of the interview process when you're going for a job. And that is you perform and you hope you've made the right performance, the right impression at the right time, because you've only got one opportunity. You can't go out and say, "Can I start again, please?"
Yeah. No, you can't. You only get one chance, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's part and parcel of what the issue is. If we go back to your question about education, one of the things which is missing from education always was, and I think still is, and that is what to do to make the right impression. And it's all about research.
Okay. So if I was a brand new entrant into the industry, what should I be researching? If, for instance, I was going into an after-sales role at a car dealership or a group, what should I be doing? Where should I look for that information?
Well, first stop has got to be Google.
Yeah.
It's got to be Google. But then looking at that industry that you want to become part of, look at your franchise market. Look at the model provided by Vauxhall, Ford, and others. Go in and talk to somebody. Somebody that's doing the job that you might want to do, or a service manager, or a salesman. Not everybody wants to talk, but most do. Yeah. Most do, particularly if it's a quiet afternoon and you don't know till you knock the door. And in actual fact, you do yourself a great service by knocking on the door because you're showing motivation.
Absolutely, yeah. Like you say, unless you're forthright and you're proactive and ask, they can only say no, can't they? They can ignore you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I remember the story of talking to a colleague at a previous employment, and he's telling me about his great acquisition, the guy that he'd just taken on. I said, "So how did you hear of him?" He said, "Well, actually, he knocked on my door and offered me wall covering outside the house, wall coat or something."
That kind of brings us on to onto bosses, because obviously once you get that job and you end up being managed by someone, that everything can either change for the better or for the worse, really. Yeah. In your experience, your considerable experience, and you don't have to name names if you don't want to, but you can do for this one. Who was your best boss?
John Collingswood, my current boss, without a doubt.
For what reason? What characteristics has John got?
Well, he's always available, which is great for somebody like me because I tend to speak as a find. Yep. Sometimes out of context. I also, if it's on my mind now, I might have forgotten about it in half an hour. No, not true. But I think in today's, it's fast moving. And what you need is a problem solved. Problem shares, problem solved. We know that. And when you've got a boss that you can immediately go to, and you'll get resolution to that problem, even if it's not what you want to hear. You get resolution. And I think as we get into this more and more corporate world, the processes we need to go to get a decision, actually the problem might have gone away when you get your answer. And so that never solved it. No. So I enjoy my current role greatly because of the person I work for and the team I work with.
That says it all, doesn't it? The kind of impact a great boss can have on you as an employee is huge, isn't it?
Absolutely.
What else does John do that kind of makes you want to get out of bed every day and kind of leap out of bed every day?
John has a great pioneering and motivational spirit. And by that, he cares about his people. And I don't think there's many employers out there, Many say they do, but many don't do what they say.
Yeah.
And having worked with John for a number of years and know how anybody can go to him, it doesn't matter what you do within the company. It's nothing to do with the title. It's all about the people personality. Yeah. To have empathy, sympathy, and actually be a doer are three great skills, and I respect that of John very much.
Definitely. Flipping it round, and you definitely don't have to mention names here. Probably best that you don't, actually. Who was your worst boss and why?
I've never had a bad boss.
Wow.
Except
you're the first person to say that.
But I would add, I worked for a company where a takeover was involved. And it was an unpleasant experience because I was head of sales there, and the first job was to get rid of the sales team.
Okay, well.
But I was retained. And the person that had bought the business insisted on being continually on the phone, even if you wandered out to get a sandwich. And he was just checking up.
Yeah.
But yeah, it didn't get bullying status, but it was unpleasant.
No, that's good that you haven't experienced because we've had a few stories here that have been not great, to be honest. But what would you say to someone who perhaps is going through, who's in this industry at the moment, and perhaps experiencing a bad boss, or they don't want to go to work because of one person in the business? Yeah. What advice would you give that person?
Well, it's difficult because one size doesn't fit all, and there's many, many different circumstances. But what I would say is if you can be bullied by one, bullying is too strong a word, but if you can, if your job's made uncomfortable by one person, your life is probably going to be made uncomfortable by another person at some point, because that's part of your character trait.
Yep.
And you're obviously going to worry about things, and it might be you're in the wrong job. Not just working for the wrong person, but you're actually in the wrong industry. And I think you have to, outside your studio here, there's a little word on the wall, one of many, but the one that I'm going to pick up on is resilience.
Okay, yep.
In any form of employment, as in marriage, as in any partnership, you have to be a resilient individual because things will come along and they will knock you sideways. And job is important, but it's probably only second in importance to your relationship, whatever that is. So what you experience in your work, you could experience in your relationship. So if that is detrimental to either of those two great associations, it's going to affect the other. So I think if you're uncomfortable in one relationship, you're going to be uncomfortable with the other at some point, and they're going to roll against each other. So you've got to develop resilience, or if you're unhappy with your partner and you can't change it, you have to change your partner.
You find a different solution.
And the same with employment. So I would associate the two.
Okay. And bearing that in mind, what makes an ideal person for this industry? What character traits would someone have to maybe not feel either out of place or like they should be doing something else? Is that a fair way of putting it?
Yes, it is. Again, it could have a complicated answer, but let's try and make it relatively easy. I think you have to enjoy the industry that you're within. So you have to have an interest. I've interviewed people in the past where you say, "And what brings you to our door? Why do you think you could do this job?" "Oh, I love cars." "Great. Well, what do you love about them?" "Well, I like driving them. I like this. I like that." But actually, that's no qualification for what we're looking for.
No.
So I think you need to have a genuine interest in what you're doing. Your ability to learn must be not insatiable, but it must be ongoing.
Yep.
Even at my senior years, I'm learning things as I go along.
Yeah, you never stop learning, do you?
Correct. And I think anybody that's interested will maintain this level of wanting to learn. The hunger might grow out of you over the years, but you should always want to. If you see something which you don't understand, don't know about it, learn about it. And I think that's a commonality from coming in, that what makes a good person is your like of other people, because we all deal with people, your understanding of the products and arena in which you're in, your need to learn, and your problem solving. Because no matter what you do in this industry, there's always a problem. Those problems sometimes are quite cyclical, they keep coming up, but at other times they're actually new. So unless you've got a problem solving mind, actually, you might have been better to do something else.
Yeah, I suppose the good news with that, with your answer there, is that it covers such a broad range of people,
Yeah.
doesn't it? It's I think pretty much everyone we have in this studio says the same thing, which is that there's so many exciting opportunities in the industry. Why wouldn't you go for it? What do you think might hold people back from coming in?
It may be they look at regulation, and unfortunately, within the retail motor industry, of which we're part, the press always report on the bad stories.
Yep.
They always report on negativity. He shouldn't have bought a diesel car. He only does 2.5 miles to go shopping every day. And, of course, the vehicle's off the road again because he wants a diesel particulate filter and he hasn't got £2,500 to replace it. And those are the sort of stories that hit the news with the FCA and regulation. That's hitting the news. So, yeah, if I was in my later stages of education, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I just was looking for a business opportunity. I might look at this industry and say, nah, that's not for me. Or I might see that the old adage that, the used car industry is full of people taking money from you. They wear sheepskin coats and they've got an Alsatian chained up outside the caravan.
It's such an unfair stigma, isn't it? It really is.
Yeah.
And thinking specifically about a role that links directly with what you guys do, for a vehicle technician or someone who works in after sales, is there a certain type of person that would most fit that kind of role, do you think?
Well, actually, many of the qualities which I've described earlier.
Yep.
I think you must like people,
Yep.
first and foremost. Your communication skills must be great. And off air, Mark, we were talking about being an actor.
Yeah.
I think that also helps as well, because that helps provide a resilience. One of the things that people, again, a misconception of after sales is, what if it's not for the person? What if it's the wrong products that I'm talking about? What if it's the wrong recommendation? Well, actually, if you've communicated well, asked the right questions, qualified them, you won't make a mistake.
Exactly.
You just have to have good listening skills.
Yeah. But really it does work, doesn't it? What's the main thing you've learnt about the automotive industry? If you could pick one element.
I think it's that the customer is now the king.
Yep.
He wasn't always the king. It was the customer, when buying a used car particularly, it was almost customer beware.
Yeah.
Whatever the problem is, it's your fault. You bought the thing, it's your fault.
All your fault.
Yeah. Now it's all about what happens afterwards. So my benefit of working within the retail motor industry is respect your customer.
Okay, and again, speaking as someone who doesn't know a huge amount about what you guys do, how would I qualify as a WMS customer? What would I have to be or do to?
Yeah, you'd be a motor dealer.
Okay.
You'd be selling motor cars, and you would have your eye on customer retention,
Yep.
good quality control, and what you would want to know is that wherever your customer drove their new acquisition within the UK, should a fault occur, that vehicle would be looked after.
Ultimate peace of mind, then, basically.
Correct.
And how long have you been there?
I've been with WMS since 2009.
Wow,
So a few years.
just over 10 years.
Yeah, yes, I've just learnt my trade.
They must be doing something right then. And you
Absolutely.
must be doing something right as well. Malcolm, just to finish this off, obviously it's the first time you've been to the Armchair studio.
It is.
What's the experience been like today for you?
Oh, well, it's been rewarding. No, I'd have to say rewarding.
Good.
I've met some great people.
Yep.
You have been very welcoming. Your questioning style is brilliant because you have not been confrontational.
I'm not really a Piers Morgan.
No, all right.
Thankfully.
We can see that.
I wouldn't be in here, would I? If I was?
No. It's been a great experience.
Good.
Thank you.
We spend a lot of time. We want to make guests feel comfortable.
Yeah.
Do you feel that we kind of prepared you enough for this coming in?
Yeah. Well, for me, I didn't know what to expect.
Okay.
So to sit in front of a microphone with a pair of bunny ears on, it's a strange experience, but I've warmed up to it.
And what would you say to anyone who's perhaps a little bit nervous about getting involved in something like this?
Don't be nervous. Mark and the team here will make you feel very welcome. They're very warm. And actually, the hospitality is great.
We've got a great coffee machine.
Absolutely.
And there's sandwiches as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And croissants. It's great. Malcolm, thanks for giving us so much of your time today. It's fantastic. It's been great to meet you and great insight as always.
Yeah,
Thanks very
pleasure.
much.
Thank you very much indeed.
Cheers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Armchair Marketing.